But to answer the question posed at the beginning of the video, yes, Goku does in fact solo.
No, he doesn't. I made a picture in Photoshop a while back asking the question if Goku could solo several legendary Pokemon. See? There's the proof. Anyways, someone else put it on the power scaling subreddit and didn't give me credit. And then a YouTuber caught wind of it and made a video about it, which is what I'm addressing today. Sage, whose video link is in the description, says that Goku can beat all of these Pokemon in this image. On top of all that, he also hints that Goku's capable of beating Arceus, who is basically God if he was a Pokemon. But according to him, it's not even the strongest Goku that can accomplish this. It's Goku from Dragon Ball Super. So today I'm going to be going over his video and proving that Goku from Dragon Ball Super does not solo all 5 of these legendary Pokemon. But before we actually get into reviewing his video, it might do us a lot of good to actually explain the cosmology of both Pokemon and Dragon Ball. Reason being, pretty much all of the Pokemon in this argument scale to the Pokemon cosmology, and Goku scales to the Dragon Ball cosmology. When it comes to the Pokemon cosmology, we've only had one visual depiction of it, and even then that's outdated by like 15 years. But I'll explain it from the start. Before there was anything in the universe, there was the Pokemon Arceus. Arceus then gave birth to the trio of Palkia, Dialga, and Giratina. From Palkia's birth came space, which is infinite in size as per the Pokédex statements, as well as an infinite amount of alternate universes. And with their sibling Dialga's birth, time began, as well as an infinite amount of timelines being created. In Pokemon, time and space are equal. An infinite amount of one means an infinite amount of the other. And then we have the Distortion World, which came about with their sibling Giratina's birth. The Distortion World is a place both void and beyond all time and space. In addition, it balances out all time and space throughout the multiverse. The Distortion World is an extremely weird place that is devoid of all logic. So you should understand that there's an infinite amount of multiverses and an infinite amount of timelines in Pokemon. And then beyond literally all of that is Arceus' realm, which is also beyond all time and space. There are some more complexities to the cosmology, but they don't matter right now. This is just the basic knowledge you need for the scaling. Now for Dragon Ball. In Dragon Ball, the universe is infinite, and then beyond the physical universe, there are the heavenly realms. Otherworld, heaven, hell, and the Grand Kai's planet. And then there exists some places that are outside of this, maybe, like Supreme Kai's planet. But there isn't just one universe, there's 12 universes in total. Each one is pretty much equal in size to the others, though. And with the basic cosmology out of the way, we can get into reviewing his video.
First things first, I think we can easily remove Mega Rayquaza from contention here, as his best canonical feat is having the speed and strength necessary to destroy the Grand Meteoric Delta, making the Emerald Dragon around baseline planetary in terms of AP, and roughly 98 million times faster than light if you think the Grand Meteoric Delta traveled from the other side of the galaxy to Earth, which there's strong evidence for. And though that may sound insane compared to most fictional universes by the end of their series, when it comes to Dragon Ball, it's just a drop in the bucket, and doesn't even make you base Saiyan Saga Goku level. With this version of Goku easily being large planet level in terms of AP even before training with King Kai, and comparable in speed to his Namek space shuttle, which was traveling at quintillions of times the speed of light.
Right out of the gate, there's several problems with this. Sage claims that Mega Rayquaza is only planetary level, and then cites the Versus Wiki stuff for the speed, but if you actually did the math for both the meteor and the speed, you would find out that Mega Rayquaza is actually large star level. But how do I know this? Because I did the math. In the games, we're told that the meteor is 6 miles in diameter, and assuming that the meteor has the density of iron like most meteors do, it would have a density of 7,873 kilograms per meter to the 3rd power. It would also have a diameter of 9.66 kilometers. Calculating the mass of a sphere this size would leave us with almost 4 quadrillion kilograms of mass. And if we take the 98 million times faster than light, and just plug those numbers into our kinetic energy formula, we find that Rayquaza is outputting over 162 tridecillion joules of energy, the equivalent of 1.624 foe, enough to destroy a large star. But that calculation and speed are irrelevant because this is the least impressive of Rayquaza's feats. Because you see, Rayquaza has one-shot Giratina, a Pokemon that stands at the zenith of the cosmology, and then proceeded to style on him by dodging a move that literally cannot miss. So what's going on here? Sage obviously made a huge mistake by using the lowest end feat for Rayquaza, right? Actually no, because I found out later in the comments that Sage does not consider the Pokemon movies canon, and thus didn't use any feats from the Pokemon movies. So sorry Mewtwo, I guess you're not canon. The irony also isn't lost on me that he starts Rayquaza's section with clips from this movie and uses a non-canon feat for Goku to measure his speed. And addressing the canonicity of the Pokemon movies, pretty much all of them up to the Magearna movie have a place that they can fit into the anime, and the anime even makes callbacks to these movies, such as Ash recognizing a Pokemon from the movie. For example, Jirachi, which only had 2 appearances in which Ash saw it, the movie and the Black and White series. And yet Ash will recognize it in the Black and White series, which means that the movie must have been canon. And let's also remember that there's an infinite amount of multiverses and timelines within Pokemon. What I'm getting at is that in Pokemon, the canonicity really doesn't matter. There's an alternate timeline or multiverse out there where something has happened that's happened in the series. One universe might have Red, the other might have Ash, the other might have another Red. The only consistent across all of them is Arceus, which basically means that everything is fair game in Pokemon's canonicity. The same sadly can't be said for Dragon Ball Z because there's multiple canonicities. There's Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball GT, the movies, Dragon Ball Heroes, and Dragon Ball Heroes might try and tie them all together, but it's not the main canonicity. Nor is it the Goku that Sage is arguing for. I also want to address that he said Goku before training with King Kai was large planet level. He wasn't. Goku couldn't even defeat Raditz himself, who is just a basic planet buster. And even that is being generous because I'm pretty sure in the Daizenshu it says you need a power level of at least 10,000 to blow up a planet, which Raditz obviously doesn't have. Basically, Sage's low end for Rayquaza would be around Frieza level. And remember, that's the low end. We'll get into the high end later when we scale Giratina.
So yeah, Rayquaza, I love you, but you're not getting past Ginyu Saga Gohan and Krillin, let alone current Goku. Moving on, the next strongest Pokemon in this image is definitely Ultra Necrozma, who is on a completely different level than Mega Rayquaza altogether. Starting with attack potency, Ultra Necrozma would easily range anywhere between multi-galaxy to high universal level, via having the ability to absorb all light present in Ultra Space, which should be infinite in size based on statements from Pokemon's creative director Junichi Masuda. As for Necrozma's speed though, it might be more impressive than its AP, since it's verbatim stated that Necrozma once illuminated all of Ultra Space, an infinite-sized realm that also connects to infinite universes via Ultra Wormholes. This means Necrozma's light would have to be transversing across Ultra Space in all of these worlds in a finite amount of time across infinite distances, aka infinite speeds. However, once again, despite these stats being otherworldly compared to 99% of fiction, when it comes to Dragon Ball, it doesn't even get bro past DBZ Super Saiyan 3 Goku level, as even this version of Kakarot was able to go toe-to-toe with Kid Buu. The same Buu who is threatening to destroy the Grand Kai's planet, which has a GBE well above the required energy to be universal, due to being comparable in size to the Heavenly Realm. With this same logic basically applying to Goku's speed scale as well, as he was easily able to transverse heaven while just in base, and would only get 400 times faster as a Super Saiyan 3. Therefore, I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that Ultra Necrozma is a Goku victim, even before Battle of Gods.
So Sage actually fairly scales Necrozma for the most part. Yes, Necrozma did illuminate all of Ultra Space, but there are some smaller details that he does outright ignore or overlook. First off, Ultra Space does not just connect to the infinite universes in Pokemon, it also connects to the infinite timelines, as Ultra Necrozma's wormholes can connect to different points in time. Proof being in the Rainbow Rocket post-game, where the evil team leaders are from different points in time and universes. See, the Pokemon mainline games do have an established timeline thanks to the character Looker. After Gen 4, Looker appears in almost every game. And depending on what he's doing in those games, or if he has his partner Krogunk, or if other characters like Cynthia were present in the game, fans have been able to piece together the timeline of the games. For example, since Looker doesn't have his Krogunk in Pokemon X and Y, it must take place after we stop Team Galactic in Diamond Pearl Platinum. Yet despite this, Cyrus is on Team Rainbow Rocket after having created his new world. If he had done this, then Lysander could not have actually gotten his plans done because he would have been dead. And yet Lysander is still on Team Rainbow Rocket, so he must have been pulled from an alternate time. I forgot to explain this until the final editing stages too, but apparently every single one of these team leaders on Rainbow Rocket were pulled from their timelines when they were about to get killed by their respective legendaries. But Rainbow Rocket isn't the only example. We also have the Guzzlord timeline, in which an Ultra Wormhole takes us to an alternate version or time, most likely time, where we failed to stop Guzzlord in the main world, and it pretty much ate everything in the entire planet, destroying everything. The reason this must take place after is because the events of Sun, Moon, Ultra Sun, and Ultra Moon all take place within the same time frame. So for Guzzlord to have destroyed the Alola region, it must have taken place after all of the events had happened. And wouldn't you know it, Guzzlord in the original Sun and Moon only appears after the Ultra Wormholes are opened by Lusamine. I also just noticed this while recording the video, but I don't think Sage realizes that the Pokemon universe is also infinite, because he just takes the infinite statement for the mortal realm of the Dragon Ball Z cosmology and says that this puts Goku at a higher level than Necrozma, who connects to an infinite amount of universes. While Goku's realm is one infinity, or two if we include the heavenly realm, based on what Videl says in the clip that he shows, Necrozma is connecting to an infinite amount of infinitely sized universes, obviously dwarfing the number that Goku has. And I think later in the comments he tried to defend this by saying that the Heavenly Realm was an extra-dimensional plane. But the thing is, Ultra Space also has some scans claiming that it's extra-dimensional as well. There's a possible argument for it being above Palkia and Dialga too. And we'll get into why that's a huge deal once we get to Palkia and Dialga. But there's actually one huge reason why Goku cannot beat Ultra Necrozma. You see, Necrozma absorbs energy and light. Does this sound like a familiar Dragon Ball Z villain? It should, because it's Yakon. In the fight against Yakon, all of the attacks that Goku used that emitted light, like Ki Blast, were eaten by him. Even turning Super Saiyan just let Yakon eat it as well. Yakon's a creature that devours light. But Goku was able to get around this because Yakon had a limit. He could just keep powering up and feeding it to Yakon, and Yakon would explode from the power.
Dad changed back from being a Super Saiyan?
Yes, though it seems the choice wasn't entirely his.
If Yakon is a creature that feeds on light energy, then Goku's Super Saiyan aura, he would likely find that a most nourishing meal indeed.
Oh, don't mind that. Go on, light yourself up.
He's that hungry, huh?
Necrozma can do the exact same thing as Yakon, except he doesn't have a limit. Even the Pokédex statements support this, because while possessing Solgaleo or Lunala, Necrozma is literally absorbing infinite amounts of their energy. And that's his weaker forms. Goku would only be able to use actual punches to fight Necrozma, or he'd risk powering up Necrozma to the stupidest amount possible. Hell, a better comparison might be the Super 17 fight. I know it's from GT, shut up. And this isn't even the only way that Necrozma can win. Being a psychic type means that Necrozma is super intelligent. It's also extremely brutal in the way that it fights, and will resort to some very interesting things to win. Necrozma in lore, while in his dying form, ate the sun of the Ultra Megaopolis' planet and pretty much all light within at least a 2,000 light year radius. You know, assuming they don't live in an alternate universe, and he ate all of the light in the universe, which just makes this even more broken. My point being that Necrozma can just go and eat the sun at any point and just let Goku freeze to death in whatever solar system it left him on. If Goku tried to run to some other solar system, Necrozma can just chase him there. Remember, Ultra Wormholes connect to pretty much everywhere. Necrozma can just jump from universe to universe, solar system to solar system, timeline to timeline, eating suns if it wants, just to catch Goku. Not only that, but he can just hang out in space where Goku can't get to because he can't breathe. He could just sit up there and nuke the planet if he wants to. Hell, if they're even in a fist fight, Goku probably can't even touch Necrozma. His body is hotter than the surface of the sun. And lava has been kinda inconsistent in Dragon Ball. But if the surface of the sun can burn Goku, Goku's gonna get burnt whenever he hits Necrozma, kinda like when he hit Omega Shenron and Nova Shenron's powers burnt him. I know it's GT, shut up. Necrozma doesn't have to fight alone. It can open various Ultra Wormholes and just have you fight Ultra Beast. Necrozma just has a literal army on its side at any moment. Hell, it can even empower these guys just based on them bathing in its aura. Because if fighting an army wasn't enough, you can now have one empowered by Ultra Necrozma. So I really don't see how Goku can beat Ultra Necrozma, except by maybe some Ultra Instinct loophole. He can't use physical attacks or he'll just get burnt, and he can't use key attacks or he'll just keep empowering Necrozma. He also can't afford to wait because Necrozma can just leave him in the bitter cold of nothingness. He can't run because Necrozma can just chase him. And he possibly can't even reach Necrozma because Necrozma can just sit there in space. But maybe you have an idea of how he can beat him, so tell me in the comments. Let's go on with the next part of his video. Oh yeah, before I forget, Necrozma could just nuke the planet with a spirit bomb if he wanted to. Yeah, he literally has a spirit bomb.
Speaking of Battle of Gods, though, before we jump into scaling the Creation Trio, I think it's finally time we go over current Goku's AP scale, which is obviously based on his infamous clash with Beerus that threatened to destroy the entirety of the Universe 7 macrocosm, including Heaven, which is stated to be dimensionally transcendental to the mortal plane of existence.
I did some research, and apparently this statement was mistranslated. Also, they're not referring to this in the power scaling sense like you're thinking. Your spirit is going from one dimension to the other. Your soul is literally transcending. Because I know power scalers love to use this argument to say that the Dragon Ball Z universe is above all dimensions. As in, it's basically an infinite dimensional universe. It's not, and if it was, you now have problems explaining Hit's time stop, which we'll get into later.
Making Super Saiyan God Goku in Battle of Gods 5D at the bare minimum, and possibly even 6D if you consider Takeo Koyama's statements of the Kaioshin realm being transcendental to Heaven.
So I'm taking this as him saying that Goku is 6D in scaling, which shouldn't be a problem for the Pokemon side, which I'll get into later.
And mind you, Goku possessed the power to destroy these realms before he went through the events of most of Dragon Ball Super, which not only allowed for Goku to increase his power by billions of times, but it also let him tap into his new signature form, Mastered Ultra Instinct. A form that subconsciously allows Goku to dodge any and all physical attacks from opponents near his strength level, while also enabling him to generate a giant Susanoo-like avatar capable of fighting giant monsters like legendary Pokémon. Getting into current Goku's speed, though, just like with AP, things are extremely straightforward. As its verbatim stated base form, Jiren was so powerful that he transcended time when facing Hit, quite literally giving him, and by extension MUI Goku, immeasurable speed by the definition of the word.
So now the time has come to discuss how Hit's power even works. As explained by Vados, there's more intricacies to Hit's time skip than just simply skipping time.
のではありません。正確には時間を飛んでいるのです。
時間を飛ぶって何？
そしてヒットは飛ばした時間を貯めることができるのです。
だからそれ何？
さらに貯めた時間で別の空間、つまりパラレルワールドを作り、そこへ自由に移動することができるのです。目には見えても触れることができないのはそのためです。
So to skip time, Hit has to store time that he skipped, and then he uses this to allow him to move in a separate dimension. Hit's time cage is similar, but does the opposite. Instead of him being in the dimension, the time cage effectively traps his opponent in that dimension. And since they haven't stored any time, they can't move. However, this is where strength comes into play. If you're strong enough, you can just break out of the dimension or destroy it completely. So Jiren and Goku are strong enough to transcend Hit's time-based attacks, but the concept of time in general, they definitely don't. In fact, if that were true for any character in Dragon Ball, they wouldn't need things like time machines. Dragon Ball Super characters definitely don't transcend the concept of time, at least in the power scaling sense. Hell, not even Zeno does, the strongest character in the series. And I'm only bringing this up because I know people will power scale Dragon Ball saying Goku's immune to stuff like rewinding time. Goku has been turned into a child by a character that is debatably weaker than him. So you can't even really argue that stronger characters are just immune to weaker characters' hacks in the universe. Can you honestly tell me that Shenron is stronger than Goku when he can't make the wish to kill the Saiyans and Demon King Piccolo could kill Shenron? And the Dragon Balls can't even grant wishes that are beyond the power of their creators. In this case, that would be Kami or Dende. And Goku sure as hell is stronger than them. At least by the time of Daima, where he's turned into a child by Shenron. Also, if you're gonna try and argue that Daima isn't canon, just don't. Goku's even been affected by poison from weaker characters before. In Dragon Ball Super. My point being that Goku's sheer strength isn't going to save him from time-based hacks. Let alone from a character who can basically force what the Time Ring was doing to Black. And the reason I'm saying all this is because of the next section, which is the Creation Trio. Because Sage is just going to outright ignore every single one of the hacks that these guys have.
Also, before anyone tries to claim that this feat is purely power-based, please do remember that strength and speed in Dragon Ball have always scaled in correlation to one another, meaning that if Jiren's power transcends time, then by proxy so does his and Goku's speed.
I guess technically, but also not, because, you know, Guldo could stop time and he's freaking weak as hell. Also, wasn't that rabbit guy faster than most of the stronger characters in the Tournament of Power?
But with MUI Goku scaled, the question now is, how does he stack up against the Creation Trio? Well, the first thing I think we need to establish is the fact that the Creation Trio are quite literally the embodiments of time, space, and antimatter respectively.
Okay, real quick. Later in the comments, Sage said that these Pokemon aren't the concepts of time, space, and distortion / antimatter, but he kinda just says that they are here. Plus, in Pokemon, it's said that they are anyways.
And are essential to sustaining the Pokemon cosmology, which consists of countless infinite-sized universes. This would technically make all of the Creation Trio multiversal plus in their true forms, as they are just the forces of time, space, and antimatter themselves, with their physical forms we see in the game simply being avatars that let them exist across the multiverse for the player character to tame.
Okay, I just now noticed he said this. He admits that there's infinite-sized universes in the Pokemon cosmology. He does realize that Dragon Ball only has 12, right? Surely he does.
That being said, even their avatars are no joke, as each version of Palkia and Dialga have the ability to reset whatever universe they reside in at the time, which you guessed it would make even the Creation Trio avatars uni at the bare minimum. However, with that said, even though I just spent like 2 minutes straight hyping these guys up, unfortunately they still get slammed by Goku. As despite them literally being the incarnations of time, space, and antimatter in the form of actual realms themselves, Goku can still easily destroy these realms by fighting an avatar of the Creation Trio within said realms like against Beerus, or you could just argue he completely outscales altogether via him being above the Creation Trio's individual avatars by an entire tier of infinity.
Alright, let's go over this. I got no idea where exactly he's scaling the Creation Trio other than multiversal maybe and 4D. But let's try to actually explain what higher infinities exist within the Pokemon world. There's the obvious 3 spatial dimensions of X, Y, and Z, and then we have time as a 4th one. And then yes, we have Palkia and Dialga existing in a higher realm. We know that they do because there's a character in the Arceus movie that to even talk to the Creation Trio has to transcend the boundaries of time and space. Obviously that should put them at 5D at the bare minimum. But Pokemon does have a lot of alternate dimensions. As to which ones are higher dimensions, it's not really clear. For example, we can argue that the unknown dimension is a higher dimension, but then Palkia and Dialga are above them. We know that Ultra Space is an extra-dimensional realm, but then Palkia and Dialga can be pulled into Ultra Space, so is it above them or below them? But all of this might be a moot point because Palkia has some entries that state it's the master of spatial dimensions, meaning it controls all of them. But regardless if you see Palkia and Dialga as just 5D, I don't see Goku being higher than this in Super. Yes, I know Sage made an argument for 6D, but we just got done explaining why higher dimensions in Pokemon before Palkia and Dialga can be nebulous. Anyways, let's get into the hacks that these guys have. Palkia can just straight up go anywhere in the multiverse. It has absolute control over space and dimensions. Palkia could just straight up send your left arm to the sun, your face to another version of yourself, your head up your own ass, and your leg into an anthill. This thing's signature attack just tears through space itself. Then we have Dialga, who has absolute control over time. It can go to the past, to the future, whenever the hell it wants. Dialga could just straight up make time go in reverse for everyone but itself. He could do exactly what happens in Daima to weaken Goku, or just turn him into a Zygote. And while on the topic of their powers, they're not just universal. In the anime's Multiverse Madness special, just their altered forms were enough to threaten the infinite multiverse and timelines of Pokemon. Yeah, those aren't even their strongest forms. You know, the ones that are in the picture. And then these two pale in comparison to Giratina. Giratina in its altered form could take on both Palkia and Dialga, the same ones who can threaten the infinite multiverse and timelines. And Giratina can win. And Giratina's hacks defy all logic. Literally, Giratina's hacks don't have any logic to them. Giratina is the distortion world. Giratina is without time and without space. It has no logic. In the distortion world, the heavens and the earth are as one. Gravity makes no sense. Places are flying. People can merge with each other. Giratina doesn't even have to be in the real world to hurt Goku. He can just start destroying pieces of the distortion world and it'll hurt Goku. And that's not even considering the fact that Giratina's distortion world is a higher dimension than Palkia and Dialga's. And then there's the fact that Giratina controls antimatter. And if we take that to the most extreme conclusion, Giratina has a one-shot capability at any point in time. All he would have to do is just throw antimatter at Goku. Because if you didn't know, when matter and antimatter come together, they obliterate each other. Basically, it's Hakai. And if Goku was to somehow maybe beat Giratina, he still loses. The distortion world balances out all time and space throughout the infinite multiverses. If the distortion world goes, everything goes. And Giratina is the distortion world. And remember, the distortion world is higher than Palkia and Dialga, meaning that Giratina would be 60 at minimum. And being beyond and without the concept of time, that means that Giratina also has a measurable speed. And since Dialga can actually keep pace with it in the distortion world, that means that the other two also have a measurable speed. And here's where we can actually get back to scaling Rayquaza. Because in the Pokemon movie Hoopa Unbound, Hoopa uses hyperspace rings to pull all 3 of the creation trio to its side. If you didn't know, hyperspace is a higher dimension in itself. Which means, again, at the bare minimum, Hoopa Unbound should be 7D. You know, because it was able to infiltrate the Distortion World and Palkia and Dialga's dimensions. And yes, the creation trio were chilling in those dimensions at the start of the movie, we even see them. And Rayquaza not only takes on Giratina, but also tanks a hit from Hoopa Unbound. Meaning that Rayquaza should scale to Hoopa Unbound then. Not to mention that while in base form, Rayquaza could match Spatial Rend and Roar of Time colliding with each other. An attack that in another movie was going to wipe out an entire universe. And then in the Multiverse special, could have wiped out the entire multiverse. Yet Rayquaza in his base form could match a multiverse level threat from these guys. Mega Rayquaza is just overkill at this point. So Sage thought that Rayquaza was the weakest one here, but he's actually the strongest. So where do we have all of the Pokemon in this image scaling at? Well, the weakest we have is Ultra Necrozma being 5D at the minimum, and that's being extremely generous, while being able to affect an infinite multiverse and timelines. Then next we have Palkia and Dialga, who are at the bare minimum, pretty much the same. And please do keep in mind this is the bare minimum. After that we have Giratina, who would be 6D and the same scale. And then finally we have Mega Rayquaza, who would be 7D and the same scale at the bare minimum. And this isn't even going over the outer versal arguments for the creation trio, because Palkia has some really ridiculous arguments about being above dimensions. And if you want to argue that Ultra Instinct could just dodge all of these, it's been shown that Mastered Ultra Instinct can't dodge everything. Jiren could even land some hits on Goku. But if you really want to get into it, the Mastered Ultra Instinct argument falls apart against Rayquaza because he dodges an attack that is guaranteed to hit. But the real reason I made this video is because of Sage's last statement.
With this kind of being similar to Arceus, who also transcends the creation trio by an entire tier of dimensionality, with him residing in a realm beyond time and space altogether. Though I won't get too much into Arceus versus Goku unless you guys want to see that in another video.
No, Goku can't beat Arceus like you're implying. Everything we just went over, Arceus can do all of it. On top of all of that, he's every single Pokemon in the entire multiverse. Everything that exists in the Pokemon Cosmology is him. He is the Pokemon Cosmology. Not to mention that he can just create more life if he needs to. Or he can just pull another Pokemon from another multiverse or every single multiverse to him to aid him if he actually wanted to. There just happens to be this one Pokemon called Victini that if it shares its energy with you, you're guaranteed to win. Arceus can create an infinite number of these things to just keep giving him guaranteed victory. And that's not even going over the fact that this isn't the true Arceus. This is his avatar. His true form is the heart. Something we've never seen but is beyond the entire cosmology of Pokemon, including Arceus' realm. So yes, Avatar Arceus is an entire dimension above everything else in the Pokemon universe, and then the heart is beyond even that. Meaning if you're fighting Arceus, you're not just fighting one infinity higher. You're fighting at minimum 2 and every single Pokemon that has ever existed, ever. Whenever. So no, Goku cannot beat any of the Pokemon in this picture, and if he's even on their level, they have hacks that can turn the battle in their favor, like Necrozma. Not to mention that once again, the Pokemon multiverse is infinite with an infinite amount of universes that are infinite sizes with infinite timelines, while Dragon Ball Z just has 12. And Goku definitely can't beat Arceus, because how's he going to beat someone that has guaranteed victory an infinite amount of times? Well, that's all. Leave a like so more people can see it.